Hey folks, this is Nick.
And I'm Brandon, and this is Coast to Coast.
Welcome to another episode of Coast to Coast,
Welcome back to the Coast to Coast podcast, everybody.
the Veterans Day special. Today,
Yes.
we have a couple of special guests here to do this with us. We have Army E5 Buck Sergeant, Army Don. And we
Hello.
also have with us Marines Corporal Chris Perna. Thank you guys for joining us.
Thank you for being here, gentlemen.
Thanks for having us.
No problem. So, Chris, why don't you tell us a little bit of something on your background?
Sure. Christopher Perna. I was a corporal in the United States Marine Corps from 2003 to 2007. I currently live in Niagara Falls, New York, and I work for the New York State Power Authority now.
Wow.
Wow.
All right. Mr. Army Don, got anything you want to tell us?
Yes, sir. Can you hear me all right?
Yes, sir, we
We can.
All right, good. Yeah, I live in East Texas, in a town called Joaquin, and been married for 27 years. Have 40 grandkids and 3 great grandkids. Apparently trying to get my drone license because Ferris is a drone pilot. He wants me to become one, so
Yeah, Ferris.
we can work together. And I have a variety of experience over the past 75 years of my life. Just everything under the sun. It seemed like every 5 years I'd change jobs because I get bored with what I had and go do something else. So it's been banking and working on sales sites and putting energy systems in and truck driving. It's just been a bunch of stuff, but it's been a great life. I've really enjoyed it.
I hear you. Sounds great.
I can relate to that, kind of a jack of all trades, master of none,
Yeah.
right?
Oh, yeah.
Well, actually, we did do some carpentry work over, I bet it's about a 10-year period where we did some remodeling and stuff like that. But that's a hard life.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
You don't have any benefits that way.
Nothing like manual labor to get you through to
Yeah.
tomorrow, right?
That's right.
Well, Chris, you
absolutely.
back in high school, you wrestled for my uncle, right?
Yeah, and your father.
That's right.
And you came and practiced with us a few times, and I think me and you went head to head.
Oh, I'm sure we
Oh, now that's a story I've got to hear.
did. Hey, with you. Man, don't get Brandon
I'm just
started.
saying.
I'm sure Nick handled me.
Yeah. So, guys, before we get going, we're going to start this off with my wife's question of the day because it's supposed to be a pretty good one for you guys.
Yeah.
So if you're ready for it, Brandon, shoot it.
I got it. So Linda's question of the week, she wants to know, well, she wants to preface with, to all veterans of all branches, thank you for your sacrifice, your bravery, and the example you set for us all. In short, thank you for your service. To all those who have served and those who continue to serve, happy Veterans Day. And her question is, and again, this is for our honored guests here, how was it that you essentially decided on which branch you were going to serve in?
Good question.
That's a fantastic question.
Good question.
I've got a quick answer on that one. I was drafted in the Army, so that was the choice.
You
was
didn't
made
have
for
a
me.
choice.
Well, that's not exactly true. There were some times with the draft back in the late 60s that some people had they were put either in the Marines or the Army. Those are the two that I remember. They really didn't have a choice, but the Army made the powers that may be made the choice for them, because I heard some people were drafted into the Marines as well, and I don't know
I
how
believe
that
they were
happened.
lucky.
So I feel lucky that I got in the Army. If you put it that way, but I have high respect for the Marines. Very high respect, Chris. So it wasn't. Well, it's just that
It goes
Marines
both ways.
Yeah.
was not for me. You know, I just.
Well,
I think there's some there that the true statement is a few good men, and I believe in that.
well, what about you, Chris? What made you choose the Marine Corps?
Well, I don't think I thought I was going to join the Army. And it was after 9/11, and I'm kind of unique. I went in quite older than most people join the service. I turned 30 years old in boot camp. So I went on a limb to the recruiting station to get some information, and I ran into somebody in the hallway there, and he wasn't in uniform. And I was working as a chef in a hotel in Buffalo, and I wanted to continue that, and along with joining the military. So I wanted to be a combat cook. So this gentleman was in the hallway. He asked if he could help me. I said, "What branch of the service are you in?" He said, "The Marines." I go, "Do you offer food service?" And he said that we do. And that was it. That's what made my decision up that day.
Oh yeah. But did you do cooking, or you didn't go into cooking though? Did you?
Yeah, I ended up being a cook in the Marine Corps, and I served in an infantry battalion. And if I would have went in when I was 17 or 18, I probably would have signed up as an 0311 grunt in the Marine Corps. So I ended up doing the job that I wanted to do,
That's cool.
along with being in an infantry battalion, which we deployed twice to once to Afghanistan and once to Iraq. So I was able to do my primary job during the day by feeding my fellow Marines. And then I was also able to reap the benefits of going out on patrols and raids in the middle of the night, and convoys as well. So I had the best of both worlds.
Wow.
Okay.
Ah,
Wow.
I didn't. And that's something I didn't know. That you could go in and be a cook, but still end up in the field.
Yeah, I had no idea.
Yeah, I guess I didn't know that either. I was naive, I guess, going in. I just wanted to join because of what was going on at the time. I wasn't dating anyone. I wasn't married. I didn't have any children. And the military was something that I always wanted to do. And it was the perfect opportunity with 9/11 happening, and then us sending troops to Afghanistan and then to Iraq.
Good timing.
Yeah, I never in a million years would have pictured that. What you just described. That's
It's interesting. So
that's amazing.
I know that Chris wants to share something interesting. So because I think it might be something.
Mm-hmm.
Let's go with Army Don here. Tell us about your little bit of Vietnam, how that all went down.
Yes, please.
Vietnam was, of course, something that entered my life because the government wanted it to enter my life. So the draft notice was kind of an interesting thing. My wife and I had just moved across from one of my best friends there in Shreveport, and he and I hopped in the car to go up to the hardware store about 4 blocks away. And as we were driving down our street, there's a mailman coming down on the sidewalk, and Jim turns to me and said, "Here comes your draft notice." And I just kind of looked and kind of snickered.
Wow.
Got home, and sure enough, the draft notice was in the mail. So that started my career with the U.S. Army.
What kind of a feeling did you have when you received that? What was the initial thought?
Didn't want to go, basically. I mean, it was my son said he enlisted in the Army, and he said, my hat's off to anybody that's drafted because they don't want to go. But I said, well, my hat's off to you because you volunteered to go.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it kind of works both ways, He kind of pointed that out to me today, and I guess that's right too. I mean, a lot of guys that were drafted, they went and did their duty.
Yeah.
It was interesting on the way out to get ready to go overseas to Vietnam. I had a cousin actually living in San Francisco, and we flew to Oakland. And he said, hey, I'll get you to Canada if you want to go. I said, I can give you some money. I know some people up there you can stay with. And I said, I appreciate that. There's a lot of people that were doing that. And I said, no, I think I'll stay. And it's been a real blessing. And over the years, I found out a lot of my VA benefits has really been a blessing to us.
Oh, yeah.
And, so, for 2 years of service, it turned out pretty good.
Sounds good. So, Mr. Perna, you were in Iraq and Afghanistan, right?
I was, yes.
What can you tell us about that? Because I'd like to hear from you.
Sure. Going in, obviously, I assumed that I was going to deploy at some point, and my primary duty station was in Hawaii. I was in Kaneohe Bay, Hawaii, which, not a bad place to
Hey.
There you go.
not a bad place to store your clothes while you're gone, because I wasn't there very much. But I got there it was right before 4th of July of 2004. And my unit was going out on it's called REMPAC. It was naval ships that were going to be converging on Hawaii to do training together. And I was thrown into that at the last minute. And while we were on the ship for 18 days, our order.
Oof. He'll be back in a second.
Uh-oh.
Yeah.
He froze.
Froze for a second.
It seems like every time we do something with live YouTube, something happens somewhere. Just throwing it out there.
And
There he
There he
goes.
is.
It's
now
weird.
you're taking on that role as protect your parents. I told my parents that I was deploying to Afghanistan. And the one thing that I told my mother was, I go, the way that I'm looking at this is that I'm only going there for a short period of time. And I want to make a difference while I'm there. And unfortunately, these people are never going to leave there. So if I could make a difference in someone's life while I'm there, then I think I'm doing my job. So
Definitely.
Absolutely.
and not knowing what I was going to encounter while I was there, when I look back at it now, I'm still helping these individuals. Being a cook, I didn't know what the circumstances were, but we called them local nationals working on the base with us. And the average age was from, I would say, 14 years old to, I think, 23 years old. And we had about 6 or 7 Afghani people working with us in our chow hall. And over my 8 months of my 8-month deployment, I came very close with these individuals. And the youngest kid his name was Nazir. He worked there, I don't know, 3-4 days a week, just washing the dishes. And the US government was sending him to school to learn English. And one day he showed up with school books. And I go, show me what you have and what you're learning. And I knew from my experience in school, you're not going to learn it unless you're studying after the fact.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So I asked him to bring his school books to work with him. And I helped him learn how to read.
That's cool.
And
Wow.
so at the end of my deployment, I was sent off I was up near the Pakistani border with a squad of Marines. We were on a special forces base, and they sent me up there with them to support them. And the day I came back, this Nazir was sitting outside reading on his own.
Nice.
And what a feeling of gratitude, not gratitude, but pride that I felt helping this kid. And he
Absolutely.
and being gone for a month, he was continued to study on his own. And he was reading and writing in English.
Wow.
It was awesome.
You probably played a big role in that. You gave him the confidence for it, I'm sure.
That's amazing.
And I believe he was in one of the pictures that I had shared with you guys. There was a group of, in the one picture, there's a group of Afghanistani local nationals that worked for us. And that was right near the time that we were leaving. And I wanted to take a picture with them because I was close with them.
This little group of people. So,
And
who is the kid in this picture here?
in the back, he was sitting to my right, Nazir. But the gentleman standing up in the back, that's a completely other story that I can share with you guys. We continued to stay in contact after I came back to the States. And it was mostly through emails in the beginning, and then obviously Facebook came around, and he had a Facebook account, and he reached out to me one day and said, "I need your help." He goes, "I need to get out of Afghanistan. My family is being threatened by the Taliban. They found out that I was working on the U.S. bases and helping the U.S. government, and now they're threatening my life, and they're going to kill us."
Wow.
And my first thought was, how do I help somebody get out of their own country?
Yeah.
I had no clue where to start or what to do. And when I was in Afghanistan, the same individual came to me and said, "I want you to help me become an interpreter," because he was an educated individual. He went to school in Pakistan, and he already knew English very well. And one day on the base, I saw this officer. He needed an interpreter, and all the interpreters were out on missions and convoys. So I said, "I have somebody for you." And I went and grabbed this kid that worked for me. And I brought him to the officer, and I said, "He can help you." And the officer ultimately offered him a job.
Cool.
While I was there.
That's great.
I'm going, holy shit. I'm going, this kid sees more in me than I'm giving myself credit for to help him to get a job. But unfortunately, they sent him off to another part of Afghanistan. And the other interpreters didn't take kindly to him because of probably the area that he came from. And so it only lasted for a short period of time, and he came back to the base that we were working on, and he wasn't an interpreter anymore, unfortunately. But to fast forward to what I was speaking of, that him contacting me and saying that his life was in danger, I called some local politicians, their offices, to find out what I needed to do to help him. And not that the politicians helped me, it was their secretaries that know all the information. So the secretary that I spoke to gave me a website to go on to, which I did. And then I became a point of contact on his information. He had started a claim in Kabul where the embassy was. And I was a point of contact. They would pass the information on to me that they were giving to him. And then myself and this individual would communicate through instant messenger. That's how this whole, it's crazy that we never spoke to each other on a phone or anything. It was all through instant messenger and commenting back and forth to each other. I go, you need to provide him this and that. And then they wanted his whole family to get physicals, which they were going to charge him. And I'm sending them emails at the Kabul embassy saying, he has no money. And they're responding back to me, well, then you pay for it. And I'm going, if I could afford to pay for that, I go, I would in a second. I go, but this individual supported the U.S. government. Now his life is in danger. The least you could do is waive this so him and his family could get their visas to get out of the country.
You know, I could comment on that, and I don't want to, because when you think about stuff going on now and they wouldn't help this guy, come on.
Yeah. That was crazy.
So when did this
believe
happen?
it.
When was it he was trying to get out of there?
That would have been 2013, 2014, maybe.
Okay. So did he ever make it over?
That was my question.
Well, I'll continue. So the funny thing is, he had some gold apparently and a cow, and he sold both of those. And I think I hate to say this, that he got money from somewhere. I don't even want to say where he got it to make this happen. So he sold a cow and some gold and raised the money that he needed to get these physicals for his family. He had 3 or 4 kids at the time, plus his wife, that he needed to get out of Afghanistan.
Wow.
So this went on for about 2 years, going back and forth. That's why I have such an issue with the border and people coming over the border and sneaking in and all this bullshit, because this guy went about it the right way. And it took 2 years to get into the United States legally. And these friggin' borders are wide open.
And they're giving people that are, they're getting people that are just sneaking in legally. Oh, well, if you come on in, we'll give you whatever you need.
Well, there's so much going on right now. It's absolutely, I don't know. I'm going to get myself in trouble.
We will, because
if we go down that road.
Oh, that road is.
You know, that's my issue, because, you know, we went about this the right way. He reached out to me.
Yeah.
And I did what I could do to support him to ultimately get him where he needed to be. And so it took 2 years. And then one day I was at work and a I was in a training class of some sort, and I get a text message, and I look at it, and he goes, "I'm in Nebraska." And I was like, it happened. It took so long, but it happened so quick when it finally got to that point.
Yeah.
And next thing you know, him and his family are in Nebraska.
At least they got out.
And
Man,
That's awesome.
That's ridiculous.
And another touchy subject is that, he hit the ground running as soon as he got here.
Mm-hmm.
And he got himself enrolled in school. He got himself a job. He got his family an apartment. He ultimately got his driver's license. He bought a vehicle. He's been promoted at his job. He's graduated from the courses that he's taken.
It's crazy.
That's outstanding. That's fantastic.
I feel you, man.
I see some parallels with Vietnam on the same deal. It seems like they're repeating it. Of course, in 75, they were getting a bunch of folks out by way of helicopters on top of roofs and things like that. And I can see our method of doing things hadn't changed.
Crazy.
Especially when it comes to pulling out of somewhere.
And to see the pictures that he posts of his children now, thriving in school.
I hear you, man.
Fantastic.
Tough subject.
We had some people that I knew over in Brigham, Texas, ran a theater, and he was married to a Vietnamese lady that was in country when everything was falling apart in 1975. And when the VC finally came in and got into the southern part of Vietnam, she had been helping the U.S. government, and she feared for her life. She actually hid in a latrine, inside the latrine, to avoid being captured. And finally, she got worked her way out through Cambodia, and I think into can't remember, Taiwan, I think it was. Finally got to the United States, and she was married to this man that worked in Saigon, that was a citizen of the United States. And he was trying to get her out when all that was coming down in 1975, but I think it was another year before she finally got out. So these people live a rough life when things fall apart. I couldn't imagine me doing what she had to do to protect herself and get her out of the country. Just amazed me that she did that. And then I heard a similar story when I moved to Joaquin. Same kind of a deal. They did what they could to hide and get out. And that, I'm sure it had, hearing about the exodus of all these people that helped the United States, going to have to cross the border instead of us getting them out to begin with, like we should have. But maybe I'm getting us in trouble here. But that's the fact of life. That's what happened.
Absolutely. And Don, if you don't mind, could you give us kind of a rundown on exactly what you were doing when you were over there?
Sure. I trained as a infantryman in at Fort Polk, Louisiana, and I went in February of '68. I'd been married about a year. And when I got to Fort Polk, basic training, of course, and then 2 months of AIT with the infantry. When I finished it, the military at that time was having a hard time keeping buck sergeants alive in Vietnam. They were losing buck sergeants like crazy over there. So they came up with this idea of and it was called Instant NCO. That was the nickname for it. They'd send you to Fort Benning, Georgia, and you would learn to be a squad leader for the Army. And took you 4 months of training of that. Then you come back to Fort Pope. You were 2 months back again with AIT with fresh troops coming in, and you actually was a squad leader as a buck sergeant.
Oh, wow.
And then you go over, after you go on leave, you go over to Nam and you get out in the field. That was how I was trained. Well, during that time that I was on leave up in Shreveport, went to a skating rink with my wife and was coming around the curve, and my ankle got broke on one of those curves. It just hit the wall and broke it. So that kept me out for 5 months from going to Vietnam.
Yeah.
And so after during that time that I was recuperating, they give you what's called a profile. It says you can't run, jump, stoop, whatever, crawl. And so the doctor that I was going to, he gave me one profile, I guess about the first month that I started going to see him. A couple of months down the road, he gave me another profile, and it was a greater profile. So my first sergeant told me, he said, look, you've got this profile. Don't ever give it up. It's yours. You never give it up. So I took his advice, and the Army was pushing to get guys into Vietnam, and they were looking at everybody and anybody. Didn't make any difference what was wrong with them. And the doctor told me he had to take my profile away from me. Well, he had given me two, so I gave him one back. When I got to Vietnam and I showed them the other profile, they said, okay, we're going to change you to a clerk. So it got me changed as an MOS, and the first sergeant was right. You get that profile, it's yours. That's the way it was back then. I don't know if it is the same now. So worked in the open mess system for the 1st Air Cav. I was a bookkeeper. I kept records of all the clubs. Every day they had to do an inventory. We had to justify their money coming in and their product going out every day. And so that's what I did for about 4 months. And then they needed a club manager, and they asked me if I wanted to take the club. And I said, well, what do you mean a club? I said, well, it's not really a club. It's a snack bar. And I said, well, that's fine. Where's it at? And it was the same in the same place that I came in country to. You come in, the Army divisions have their own introduction to the country before they assign you somewhere in the field. So you're there for about a week learning all kinds of rules and regulations about the country and the customs and things like that. And so that's where I wound up with the snack bar. And there's a picture there behind you,
The
Brandon.
10 over that thing's crazy.
Yeah. Brandon's got a picture of the snack bar with a canopy, parachute tent thing.
I believe it's this one, right?
That one right down there, yeah. And then the girls up there was a couple of girls that work for us now. What Chris was talking about, those nationals, we had nationals as well. They were Vietnamese people, and they'd come in and help. I had 4 girls, the greatest girls. I mean, Nick asked me which one was mine. I didn't have any. I had boyfriends. They had boyfriends. No problem there. The GIs already picked on them. But they were great gals. They got along really well. They did some strange things to get rid of a headache. They would pinch their nose like this. I mean, for about 15 minutes, and that get rid of the headache. Now, I don't know how that works.
That's interesting.
Might have to try that later.
Yeah, we need to talk about that, But anyway, my experience over there with the people, I understand exactly where Chris is coming from. You kind of get used to them. But there was one element you had to worry about when I was there in the induction center. There was a Bible salesman walking around. He was Korean, trying to sell these huge Bibles that you put on your coffee table. You need to have a Bible. We'll send it to the United States and all this kind of stuff. Well, I guess it was about 6 months later when I was in the uh, snack bar, somebody came up and told me about the Bible salesman. Said it turned out he was a spy for the North Vietnamese. He was
man.
trying to get information from the troops as he's walking through selling Bibles.
Wow.
So you got to watch what you're doing on where your friendships go and everything. But I think anybody that has any common sense can kind of feel through those things if he just watches what he asks and how they answer and stuff like that. That's basically it for that. Now, there were some interesting things that happened. I could tell you, there were 7 men, according to what I heard. There's 7 men in the rear that's taking care of that one guy in the field. So you got mechanics, and you got cooks, and you got office people, and you got people in the medical field. And all those people are in the rear supporting that one guy, 7 out of 1. And so I happened to be one of those 7. And I was very fortunate that I felt very fortunate being drafted and everything that happened to me. But we did have our element of stress, I guess you say, while you're there.
Oh, yeah.
We would have these rockets. The North Vietnamese had Chinese rockets that they could set up and make a cross member with a couple of pieces of wood and lay that rocket in that cross member. You lay the ignition wires down in a can, and of course, it rained seemed like every day there. Once that can filled up with a little bit of water and made those 2 wires, the water would come up and hit those 2 wires, it would send that rocket wherever it was aimed for. And we had rockets coming into the compound like that. We had 2 occasions where it really came close. I was in the latrine on one of those occasions. And to this day, I always wondered, why would they want to blow up a latrine? A lot of the targets out there. But these things they weren't aimed perfectly. They were aimed with this steel. And so it went off outside the latrine. And of course, rockets are made out of metal, and metal turns into fragments. Fragments hit the tin roof, and it was pretty loud. And I stuck my head out the door, and first sergeant was over there with this hooch girl hiding behind his hooch, and he says, "Jones, get back in the latrine. You're safer in there than you would be out here." So, because I had all that thin metal protection. Anyway, that was one of the highlights of my experience with enemy fire. But then there was another time that we had moved from one place to another, and we could look down on Benoit Air Force Base, and we could see the runway. And it was night, and we started getting rocket fire in, and they hit a napalm depot. And I mean, at least I bet you $100,000 worth of napalm went up, and it was a fire going up. Wow. Next thing I noticed, I was watching that, and then I noticed down on the runway, I could hear this jet roaring engine going down the runway, and all of a sudden you could see a shadow of a Freedom Bird, which was a commercial airliner, that looked like it was going almost straight up. I mean, that guy put the pedal to the metal to get that plane out of there so that no rocket would land on that multi-million-dollar plane. Plus, he had guys on there that are probably going to R&R somewhere. And I'm thinking, well, there's coffee, tea, and me, and I got pee all over me. That's the way it would be with me if I was in that plane heading up in the sky.
Oh my God.
So those are some things that happened that I remember about my experience that you wouldn't have gotten anywhere else. Just, here in the United States, we're so comfortable, we don't have those problems. But I went back home in February of '70, and never thought about it much after that till you guys come along and asked me to talk about it.
Oh, we stirred it all up for you.
So you stirred it all up again. I tell you what. But
your time's up. That's what they say at the VA. Time's up.
Yeah, all right.
So
that's about it on that. Yeah.
There's lots of subjects and stories you can tell that are heartbreaking or scary, but there's bound to be here and there some stories, some type of little story you guys have that's humorous. Something you remember that like tickled you when you were where you were at.
Nick loves all the funny stuff.
I love funny stuff. Stuff that makes
I like all the stuff with the happy endings and whatnot. You know, everybody's good. They're having a fine time. And
I had a drill sergeant that for some reason, right off the get go, he was mad at me and didn't like me. He picked on me more than anybody else, and I could not figure out why that guy was picking on me. And I knew of a kid that came in, met him right at the first day, and he was upset because he had to leave his wife. They just got married, and you could tell he was, I wouldn't say he was a wuss, but he was just not feeling all that great about being in the service.
Mm-hmm.
So after the 2 months of basic training and with Sergeant Nance down my neck all the time, come graduation day and come time to leave and everything, and Sergeant Nance came up to me. He's a pretty good sized black gentleman, and he looked at me and he said, Private Jones, I owe you an apology. And I said, this ought to be good. he said, I got you mixed up with another guy. And I knew the guy he was talking about. He was the guy that didn't want to leave his wife and all this kind of stuff. He said, I thought you were him because he wore glasses and I wore glasses, and we about the same say. I mean, we looked alike. Really did. I admit the guy looked just like me. And he said, and I want to apologize. And that was my first apology that I got from anybody in the Army that especially was training me and everything.
You got all the wrath that belonged to somebody else.
Yeah,
Yeah.
That's right. And then there was but let me look at my notes and I'll come back to you on some other stuff on that. There was a second apology that came to me, but I need to refresh my memory what it was.
Sure.
I don't remember right now.
Chris,
But
Chris, how about you? Do you have any funny or laughable moments that you can recall?
I guess I have a few from boot camp as well. I wish I could remember this kid's name, but he was special. He was, I don't know if he was from somewhere in Pennsylvania or deep West Virginia, but the drill instructors were all over this kid from day one. And one night he was on fire watch, and there was an individual that would have to stay up and walk up and down the squad bay.
Darn, right in the middle of it.
Oh no.
Darn.
but it froze up again.
Yeah, he froze.
Boogers. Usually takes him a second and it clicks back in.
We're all listening to.
You froze on us there, Chris.
For just a second, yeah.
Yeah, I just got them. So they hit the drill instructor had this kid in the head staring at himself in the mirror, and he had him repeating, "I'm not crazy, you are," as he was staring at himself in the mirror. And we're all in our racks listening to this go on, and we're all crying, laughing, listening to this kid yelling out, "I'm not crazy, you are," as he stared at himself in the mirror in the bathroom.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Oh,
I'm stealing that with my day job at some point in time. Just throwing it out there. That's amazing.
Oh, y'all must pull pranks on each other to try to keep things.
Sometimes doing something, some kind of funny haha prank is like one of the best ways to just keep your sanity.
Yeah.
You know what
absolutely.
I mean, I can't imagine what it would be like doing what you guys were doing and going through what you were going through. I personally cannot relate to it in that aspect. I can relate to some things in a different aspect here home, kind of a morbid sense of humor, if you will. But yeah, I've been in a fair share of situations where, you know, humor is sometimes one of the things that you rely on to get you through.
Sure.
It's a powerful thing. I think that's why Nick likes it so much.
I love it.
We had one little deal where I'd bought a brand new anti-shake case in Vietnam at the post, and I had it sitting on the desk where I was working on those books. And here comes a captain walking into the office, and he said he'd been to the PX, and they were at an anti-shake case. He's going on R&R, and he wanted an anti-shake case. And he saw mine. He said, "Specialist, you want to sell your anti-shake case?" And I said, "Well, I just got it about 2 days ago."
Not even
"Oh,
broken in yet."
You bought the last one." I said, So I said, "Okay, I'll sell it to you." So he said, "I tell you what, when I get back from R&R, they should have some more, and we'll go get one. That'll be fine." I said, "I'll let you take it, and you get me another when you get back." A week later, I hear this Loach helicopter landing out in the parking lot. He walks in and said, "Corporal," she said, "Specialist Jones, let's go to the PX." I said, "Okay." So we walked outside and we got in the Loach. We flew over to the PX and got me a new anti-shake case. Come back. I'm thinking, the yes coming. I wonder how much they spent on that Loach ride for me to go get to get my daggum anti-shake case. But he was flying all over the place. So I guess it didn't make any difference to him.
Well,
But I thought that was really cool.
well, on that note, I hate to ask this. Tough subject, but with y'all's background, where you've been and everything, how do you feel now with what's happening with Afghanistan today?
This is where I keep my
sad,
mouth.
I'm saddened by
Is
it.
that
I know, Chris, I think you are too.
Is that an okay question to ask? You guys good with it?
Sure.
Yeah.
I don't have any problem with it.
It's like, it just seemed like a Vietnam all over to me. That's what, all that time, energy put into something. And I understand we can't keep pumping money in something, but why did we get in it to begin with? You have to look at the history of everything with Saddam Hussein and everything. And we just put 20 years in this thing, or was it 10? I forgot how long it was. But
20, I think.
if you
20 years.
yeah,
20.
so with yeah. But I don't know what the answer is. You look at the bad guys in the world, and you got to do something about your security, but I don't know that we're doing it the right way or something. I don't know. What do you think, Chris?
Well, I think they gave them our playbook and they ran with it.
Mm-hmm.
The way they took over as soon as we were gone, and the situation that we left our military in to try to handle that was completely unacceptable.
Nuts.
Absolutely.
I was in Jalalabad in Afghanistan, and for my first deployment in a combat zone, it was pretty good compared to what I experienced in Iraq. We had, not only were we there, the Marines, but we had the Army National Guard was on our base. Right outside our base was the Afghan Army, and they also had an established police force in Jalalabad. So for us we had to go out and find trouble while we were there. And then to see it, it got bad at one point while I was there, but it was the month that I was gone closer to the Pakistani border, is that some information that came out that somebody flushed a Quran down a toilet somewhere in disrespect to them, and they lost their minds completely. And they were rioting in the area that my base was in, but it didn't last very long. But we obviously could have did a better job in the way that we handled leaving there. It didn't need to be the way that it was. Somebody dropped the ball.
Yeah.
And I watched those hearings with those generals sitting up there, and of course they didn't want to incriminate anybody. They didn't want to say more than, because they still They're still being paid by the United States, so they could only say what they could say without saying anything.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
obviously somebody dropped the ball there, and it's unfortunate because that really hurt. Whenever, it doesn't matter, Army, Air Force, Navy, Marines, when you lose a service member, but obviously for me to see 13 Marines and a sailor go down,
That ain't right.
it hurts.
Yeah, yeah. I've got three of my sons that served in over there. Three of them served in Iraq, and one of them served that tour, and then another one in Afghanistan. We are, I guess, basically a military family from the standpoint that all my boys have, all of the Richter side of the family, which is my wife's sons, have all joined service, and only one of them couldn't stay in because of a health reason. But we've got one that is retiring here pretty soon, got 20 years in, and
Wow.
I've got another one that's training to be a doctor in the military. So
Nice.
he's working on that now. He's finished his college and he's going to get commissioned in December. So I've talked to the ones that have been over there, and it's amazing to me that the guys that go over and serve, and I think Chris can tell you the same thing. They were dedicated. Most of them were dedicated in what they did. And even though the way the situation is, they still love the country enough to be over there and leave their family and do these things that they did. And
It's not politics for us.
Yeah.
no, it's not politics. That's the point. That's exactly what I'm trying to
It's
say.
something that means something.
It has to do with their heart is for the country and for the people, and it's a shame that politicians don't get it. I mean, I know I think we need to vote more people in that probably have had military experience, so that this doesn't keep going on and on and on. They need to have some common sense about them.
Well, not that I have anything
I
to
agree.
say, but in my opinion, a lot of people say we should have never been there to begin with, but we were. And all the 20 years that we put into it, the way they pulled out, wasn't that kind of insulting? They just eliminated everything you did.
Yes.
20 years of
Yes.
stuff just thrown into the toilet.
That's kind of what I thought too. And I mean, like, I know they were throwing it all over the news, well, you've got to get out some point and whatnot. And sure, if that's how they want to play that card, that's fine. But there's a right way to do it. And this is just my opinion, this is not the right way.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
I remember driving down Highway 1 in Vietnam, riding in a bus and looking over to the side, and there was probably 100 acres full of national treasure of military hardware
I'll be right
that
back.
had been blown up, and that's just, you think, why are we there? And in that particular situation, I learned later on that politicians had a stake in all that, and they were making money off of war, and that I agree with going to war if you're protecting yourself, but to be somewhere where we're not needed, I mean, we're fighting somebody's war that makes sense.
Absolutely.
I think we need to protect ourselves. I think we need to protect our interest in other parts of the world, but fighting everybody's war is not what we should be doing, I think.
Well, then if we are, we better be smart about it.
Well, and I
Yes,
agree. I
yeah,
agree 100%
you're right.
with what you just said there. Fighting everybody else's war
Right.
is kind of an interesting concept because there's I don't know how I want to say this. It seems to me like we as a country have gotten more involved with, as you just stated, fighting other people's wars as opposed to minding our own business in a sense, I guess you could say. I don't know. It's one of those things. Like, I look at it, I was never in the military. Okay. I graduated from the Sheriff's Academy a while back, but that's obviously not the military. I look at it this way. If I'm going to take care of my family, right? I can't go out and take care of someone else's family first. I have to make sure that my family is okay before I can reach out and help out anybody else who may need it. So that's just kind of my mindset, if that makes sense. Like,
Sure.
can that transpire over into something like the military as well? Because for me personally, as a United States citizen, I've never thought it was pertinent for us to go fight someone else's battle, unless of course there's already some kind of written agreement somewhere. Like that's a different kind of story, right? But like, does that make sense? How do you guys feel
Well,
about that?
I don't feel that our government should have overextended themselves into two conflicts. You know, obviously we thought we were going after Afghanistan because of 9/11. So we should have handled that. I don't think we should have, they say the weapons of mass destruction that were in Iraq that were never there. And Iraq became a bigger issue for us than Afghanistan was.
Yeah.
And we put ourselves in a tough position having our military spread all over the place.
But if you look at Vietnam right now, the guys from the North won, basically, because we let them have it. And you go into Lowe's right now and you can buy a Samsung washing machine made in Vietnam. So those guys, they're coming around. Apparently, they're even though they're communists, they still are making a product that is sold somewhere else in the world, and they're making money off that product. Surely they can understand capitalism does work. I mean,
Well,
what did we gain there in Vietnam? And the same thing's going to happen probably in the Far East. Who knows? Something might just turn around in the next 20 years that we'll be doing business and getting washing machines from Afghanistan. Who knows? Yeah. You just have to look at the history of what's happened with these other places that we've been in, not especially Vietnam. They're doing all kinds of stuff and making all kinds of things over there now.
it's crazy.
They're part of the world economy, is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
Even though they're a communist country. You look at China, same thing.
So, real quick question from the chat here, and we'd like obviously both of your input on this. Is the statement "Thank you for your service" appropriate, or is it your belief that there is essentially no thanks needed or required?
I personally think that whenever I say it to somebody, I'm really sincerely thankful for it, and I think most of the people that say that are thankful for it. Now I don't know. I think it when you put your life on the line, I think people should recognize that and thank you for it. I really do. I think we've got probably the best military in the world. I think we've got the best trained. We've got the best equipped. I might not be right about that, but that's the way I believe from seeing what we can do and capable of doing. And we could stay on top of that, hopefully. But you're still putting lives at risk, and people are dying just so that you and I can live a free life here in this country. And you thank a neighbor for watching your home while you're away on a vacation, or you thanking your boss for giving you a raise. Why not keep thanking the service people that protected you all this time?
Agreed. What do you think, Chris?
I appreciate when somebody says it to me. Is it necessary for me? No, it isn't necessary for anybody to say anything. I know what I did. and I know what I saw, and I'm just blessed to be home.
I hear you.
That's enough for me.
Yeah.
You know,
If
I'd
they-
never, you know, I've been blessed 10 times over ever since I've gotten out. I wasn't married. I didn't have children at the time. I never even thought about it if that was ever going to happen for me. And it did.
Awesome.
I have a beautiful wife and 2 boys, and
Fantastic, man.
that's thanks enough for me right there. I can't, that's all I've ever asked for, and I've received it. And so if somebody never said thank you for your service to me again, that would be enough for me, just having my wife and my kids.
Yeah, that was beautiful.
Outstanding.
I know there are some that I don't know if it's because they don't like the memories or what, but some people like they don't want to be thanked.
I've met
Like
a
they
few
They
actually.
can almost get irritable if you say something like that.
Yeah.
Like when I'm in the grocery store and I see individuals in uniform, or if I'm out somewhere and I see somebody in their uniform, I make it a point to thank them as I'm
Yeah.
walking by.
I usually do myself as well. I have a couple friends that serve that are like, don't bother, no thanks needed. Just, I don't want to relive any of the memories kind of thing, like what Nick was talking about there. But same kind of thing. And it's not like you see someone in uniform and it's like you feel obligated. It's a genuine, thank you for doing what so many people aren't essentially willing to do. You know what I mean?
Right.
It takes a
That's right.
special caliber of human being
Oh
to
yeah.
go into something, in my opinion, as noble as knowing that you're potentially going to sacrifice yourself for everyone else. And that's why I say thank you, because it does mean a lot.
I got an interesting question because our time's running out, but
I know it's like
when and this is a good show too. When you guys with what you do and knowing what you've been through, dealing with these wars and what you've done, when you see things that go on in the U.S. that are negative, doesn't it just? It's got to be more irking to you fighting for our freedom to see some of this stuff. If it's got us this irritated, you guys actually put your lives on the line. It's got to be really irritating.
I mean, I get heated. I get on fire on some
Yeah,
of
he
these
does.
topics. I would love to get your insight into that.
Well, as a 75-year-old man, I've seen a lot since I was born in 46, which was right after World War II. I've gained an understanding that we are a nation of choices and we are a nation of freedom. And these freedoms sometimes look like they're biting us in the tail because this says you can do it. And then you say, well, why did we let them do that? So, but I understand that if we are a Judeo-Christian, Judeo-Christian nation, we follow those precepts, we follow those teachings, we follow those commandments, we follow what the founding fathers laid down as a foundation for everyone to have freedom. Now, that freedom sometimes teaches us lessons, and as individuals, I mean, if we have the freedom to do something and we get bit later on and it was because we did it, then we can turn that around and come back and say, oh, that didn't work, let's try something
Right.
else. I've done that a lot of times in my life, and I just come to terms with whatever I see somebody doing that I know is not a good thing for the country, or my opinion anyway. I try to take it in perspective and say, well, maybe they'll figure it out, and maybe they'll come to around to my thinking, or maybe they won't. But they've got that freedom, and that's what this country is all about.
Yeah.
So
Well,
if you go putting clamps on things, to thinking you're keeping something from bleeding to death. Sometimes it may backfire on us if we take those things and say you can't do this, and it might be the actual thing that can turn the country around. I don't know. That's the way I look at it.
Well, as a civilian, it's kind of like I simplify it. Like, I'm in a store with all these people, and the store is being attacked by terrorists, we'll say. And I'm doing everything I can with my life on the line to bar up these doors, stop it from coming in, helping these people out. And I look and some dumbass is unlocking and opening the back door, letting them come in the back way. I'm going to be pissed. You know what I'm saying?
Right. Yeah, I understand.
What do you think, Chris? Does it it's got to be more irritating being that you've been on the front lines to stop it? And
I have friends that work for Border Patrol, and they're local to New York, and now they're being sent to Texas because they don't have enough bodies to do the job that needs to be done because it's out of control right now. And these guys have to leave their families for a month or so at a time to go down there to relieve the pressures of these other Border Patrol agents that are stationed down there. So obviously there's a big problem, and it's not being fixed.
yeah, it's very frustrating.
Yeah. I
thought we were heading in the right direction regarding the border and how they were going to handle things, and then obviously things changed, and somebody had another opinion regarding the whole thing.
yeah.
But they don't want to cover that now. I hate to get into this back and forth regarding what they're covering and what they're not covering, but it's blatant.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
it's definitely blatant.
And, I've been watching this trial on TV with that 17-year-old kid. He's 18 now, that was providing security and first aid for people during those riots, and how they portrayed that whole thing, that whole situation as well. And they only showed you what they wanted to show you, but now the trial's playing out, and all the prosecutor can do is try to blow it for himself. It's crazy. I'm glad it's on TV and people are able to see what's going on. Now, I don't agree with that kid walking around with an AR-15, but apparently the rules are different there because the cops didn't do anything.
Yeah, well,
But it's a crazy world that we live in.
those are the exact words that was just about to come out of my mouth. I was really about to say,
Absolutely
it's a crazy world we live in now. And as soon as I went to say it, you said it.
And, having children, that's what scares me.
Yeah.
Because I'm trying to raise them with the mindset that not everything's going to be all right. And, you have to prepare yourself for that. And it's not easy. It's not easy to
Yeah.
prepare children that are, my kids are young. My one son's 5 and my other son's 10.
And it's tough because, you got outside entities politically that are trying to teach them stuff we don't want them taught.
Oh yeah. Yeah. My son's 4. He'll be 5 in June, and I'm already trying to figure out how to get him to the point where the entire world isn't just puppy dogs and rainbows and bliss, essentially. And it's tough, because he goes to school, he hangs out with his friends. He's not at the age yet where he's being taught the things that Nick was kind of alluding to just a second ago. And when that day comes, Daddy's going to have a lot to say. but it's kind of scary.
Mhm.
Every once in a while, you turn on the TV, you go on to any social media platform out there, and you're on it for 5 minutes or less, and you've sure got a lot to think about. Just saying. It's
I want to share, this is kind of a cute story regarding my son that's in kindergarten. He came home a few weeks back and said that the assistant teacher was, I got to think of the word that he used, but she wasn't being nice to him, and he didn't understand why. And she was like rushing him to do something. So he came home that day from school and told me, he goes, I don't know what the problem was. I don't know why she was acting the way she was towards me. And I go, Colin, I go, maybe she was having a bad day. And unfortunately, she was taking it out on you. And I go, my opinion is, and my wife is standing there at that, I go, I would go to school tomorrow and let her know how you feel. And my wife turned around and looked at me and goes, what are you telling him? I'm just telling him to speak up for himself. And if she made him feel a certain way and he wasn't happy with it, he needs to let her know.
Absolutely.
And I guess I shouldn't have been surprised. He comes home the next day from school and says, I had a word with the teacher.
I had a word with that teacher.
He goes, I went up to her and said, I don't know why you were pushing me yesterday, but I didn't appreciate it or whatever. And he put this student teacher back on her heels. And she goes, well, I'm sorry. And I was having a bad day. And he came home and said, you were right. She was having a bad day. I go, but did she apologize? He goes, she did. I go, well,
there you go.
I go, I couldn't be prouder of you to open your mouth and tell her how you felt because she treated you a way that she shouldn't have the day before. And, I guess any other kindergarten kid would have just taken it and never said a word. But my son went back to school the next day and put her in her place in so many words and let her know that wasn't acceptable.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That is fantastic.
That's a good example.
Yeah, the way things are going today, they have to. I always tell the kids, do it respectfully. They are elders and whatever. Do it respectfully so they can't turn it around on you. But say say how you feel.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Gentlemen, we are getting close to our time limit here. Before we go, just one more thing real quick. Do you have, in your own words, of course, any advice that you would like to give to the younger generation of men and women looking to serve?
I froze up for a second, so if you wouldn't mind repeating that, I would appreciate it.
Yeah, sure. Just wondering if you guys had any advice for any of the younger generation men and women that are looking to potentially serve.
If I don't mind, Chris, I'll
No,
jump in here real
absolutely.
quick. Something that I came to mind on that. A lot of our young people are looking for a way to pay for their education. Of course, the Army and all the services push that. They say you can get your education by being in the service. I think and they also can join early, and their clock starts early before they turn 17 in some cases, and they're still in high school, and they get to finish high school, but the clock has already started early. Now, I see what they're doing. I see what the military is doing, but young people not having the experience they've had in life, that someone that might be 25 or 30 years old, and looking at this education thing, don't make that education thing the primary reason for joining. You have to think real hard about what's going on. I had a son come to me. He wanted to join the National Guard, and he was 16 at the time. And I told him, no, you're not going to join. So will you let Devin join? He said, no, Devin joined after he was out of high school. And David was 17 and he's out of high school. Well, this one wasn't out of high school yet. And he wasn't happy with me. I mean, I knew what was going on. On the other hand, I had another son that was already in the National Guard, and he was supposed to get some kind of a finder's fee on this kid. And he wasn't happy with me either. So, but I told him, I said, I'm the guy that can sign the thing that lets you go in, and I'm not signing it until you're old enough to understand. Well, he did go in the National Guard later on after he got out of high school, and he hadn't actually ever said that he forgave me for that, but he is a lieutenant now in the National Guard. I think he was more mature when he went in instead of going in early. I think you have to really counsel your child before they go into service in that respect. That's the way I look at it.
What do you think, Chris?
Well, I had a couple opportunities to join the service. Right out of high school, I had the Marine recruiters calling me, and I went and talked to them, and I wasn't even graduated yet, and they were telling me, well, we'll give you the weekend to think about it. And I never felt pressure like that before in my life.
Yeesh.
And I obviously wasn't ready to make a decision up like that over a weekend. And then years later, a friend of mine who is still in the Army, he wanted me to join with him in 95, I believe it was. He wanted me to join the Army with him. And I went and talked to his recruiter, and the Army wasn't pressuring me at all to join at the time. But it wasn't the right timing for me either. And then, because the military was something that I always wanted to do. But I guess the timing just wasn't right. And then after 9/11, it all kind of hit me at that point. I'm going, well, I think I told myself or told other people if a situation ever had happened, I guess kind of like that, then I would join the military. And I felt that duty at that time. I felt that it was right. I was in a position in my life where I could make that decision because there was nobody else to consider at that time besides myself. And it was like shit or get off the pot, being almost 30 years old. And it was the best decision I ever made in my life, is to join the military, especially during 2 wars that were going on. I went in with a purpose, and I think I fulfilled that purpose while I was in there. It was to help others. It was to support my country. And I couldn't ask for anything more in the 4 years that I served. I guess after the fact, I wish I would have went in younger, because I would have liked to done more time. But I figured I'm 34 when I got out, and there was so many other things that I wanted to accomplish as well. And I did what I wanted to do in the military. And, I guess if I was telling somebody, or somebody was asking me my opinion, I would just say, make sure it's right for you. Make sure you're getting what you want out of it in the end. And so every day when you wake up in the mirror, you can look at yourself and say, I did it the right way, and I'm satisfied with myself, and I can walk away with my head high and knowing that I made a difference.
Sounds about right.
Fantastic.
Well, guys, I think right at the end here, I just want to bring up something, Brandon. You can kind of throw it out there because you go with words.
Okay.
So we're going to start something. I want people to know about it, and I want you guys to give your just a minute, just a second opinion on what our new endeavor is that's spinning off of this Veterans episode. Brandon, you want to share what we're doing?
Yeah. Our intention essentially is to provide kind of a platform where we can do something like this, once a month, more frequently if it does turn into a thing. Obviously we would love to have you gentlemen back if you'd be so inclined. But essentially just to provide a place where this could happen, because we think that, there's doing what you've done is such a huge decision that shouldn't be taken lightly. I do a lot of promoting for the military for my class that I teach. I have a lot of military enlistments that come through my class that I'm the instructor for, and I make sure that they take their time with that decision because they're getting not hounded, but you know what I mean, quote unquote, hounded by the recruiters from day one when they're on center where I work. And I want them to make sure it's the right decision for them. Also, not just for the younger generation, like what we were just talking about. And again, thank you for your input on that. But for people like yourselves to be able to come together and essentially share the stories, share the experiences, because we think that your voices need to be heard. We touched on a couple current affair things today, and I'm not going to speak for Nick on this, but me personally, I'd rather hear your thoughts and opinions on stuff like that than anybody else's thought or opinion on the news.
That's right.
Because the news is unreliable. I'm just going to throw that out there. Sorry, YouTube. You're going to get me in trouble for it, YouTube. I apologize, but it is what it is. But that's basically that's our goal, to start out essentially once a month where we could do something like this. Like I said, we'd love to have you guys come back if you'd like to. We're reaching out. We would obviously love to have more people as well. And we just want to give you guys a place where you can come on, you can tell your stories, and you can be heard.
Anywhere there could be
Sounds great.
3 to 6 people in a group. It could go on for 3 hours if it had to, where you just discuss things between the day to day, and then essentially we share that, and it will be uploaded. We'll have a separate channel. We're going to name this thing.
Yeah.
And once a month.
Today's kind of a special kind of episode that we're working in live with you guys. This other stuff would be, like Nick was just talking about, recorded separately, and then we would integrate it with what we usually do, as well as have it its own standalone thing, I think, as well. Right?
Yeah, essentially, as we catch them, we're going to take the real good spots of it, little clips, and once a month in an episode, we're going to speak of it, and then tell them, if you want to watch the full episode or other things of this, go to our other channel, where it will be named, and the whole, whether it's you guys talk for 1 hour, you talk for 3 hours, the whole sitting will be put up for people to listen to what you guys have to say. We want to get as many military people across the states as possible to do this thing. We're spreading it as best we can. So,
absolutely.
What do you guys think about that? Does this sound like something?
Sounds reasonable to me. It sounds like a good platform.
Fantastic.
Yeah, I like it.
Cool. Okay. Yeah, we're hoping to get involved with as many charities as we possibly can as well later on down the lines. From this kind of, I guess you could say, branch off from what we've historically been doing, we want anything and everything that we possibly can to go towards those charities through these events and these get-togethers and these meetups, and essentially the awareness that only people like yourselves could bring.
Right.
So with that, I'm going to say thank you, gentlemen, for being here.
Very much so.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, really. Thank you for having us. That's actually what I feel too.
Well, we appreciate you guys.
I think it's
everything
it's
you
a good
did.
thing you're doing.
Thank you.
I'm so happy that you guys could
awesome.
come on. This was powerful stuff.
Yeah, this was one of our best. I like it.
This was amazing. And again, Chris, Dawn, thank you both for your service and everything that you've done for this country. And again, just
you feel like you can't say thank you enough, don't you?
I can't say it enough. It's like, it's just,
it could be annoying to some people, but if you knew how we felt in our hearts, like why we're not just being like
Yeah.
like we think we have to say thank you. We're thanking you because it really means something to us.
Well, and there's
Huge.
such
Well, I
good-
think there should be some thanks here to you guys for going out on the limb and taking your time off from doing something else you might want to do, and bringing this forth in this platform. And
Letting a couple old vets talk.
yeah, that's part of the program that takes two sides of something to get something
Yeah.
accomplished.
Yeah.
You know, so it's good.
Thank you.
It's good.
Well, we'll say thank you from our co-producer Mary would like to thank you. Ferris would like to thank you. We will thank my wife Linda for her question of the day for these guys.
yes.
That's a good question.
Yeah.
She usually comes up with some pretty
Yeah,
good ones.
usually.
Even if you were drafted, that's a good question.
Even if you the draft ain't a thing anymore, is it? They didn't bring it back. I think they were talking about.
No, it's
No,
not
I don't
back.
think so.
But I got an opinion on that. Next time I come on, I'll tell you what I think about
Right.
that. I think there is some necessity in some of that, not all of it.
I hear you.
That'd be a good cliffhanger for our viewers and our listeners. And again, to all of them, we thank you all for tuning in.
Love
Be sure
y'all.
to like, subscribe, share, comment, leave us some questions that you would like us to ask in the next, I guess you'd call it open forum that we're going to be having with our military members. And as always, thanks for being here, y'all.
Yep.
We appreciate it.
Peace.
Okay. Take care.